meeting of the City of Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. I will call the meeting to order 6:02 p.m., March 3rd, 2022. And Luis, can you call the roll, please?
Of course. Chair Taylor?
Present.
Commissioner Firestone?
Present.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Walker?
Present.
Commissioner Ittner?
Here.
And Commissioner Ruff?
Here.
Thank you. And unless there's some objection, since I'm here in person, I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
Okay, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
indivisible,
God,
with
indivisible,
justice for all.
with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we have a number of public comments on the record for this evening. Just as a reminder, the Park Commission will receive the comments from the public at this time for items not on the agenda. Other than for emergency items on the agenda, no response will be given or action taken during this period. Matters raised at this time requiring commission action will be placed on subsequent agendas. And when addressing the commission, please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And for written comments, I'll have Luis enter into, for the record, a summary of the written public comments that were submitted prior to the start of the meeting, please.
Sure. And just for clarity, the comments that were received were for agenda item 7B, and that's the pickleball facility. Summary of that is that we received 39 written comments. 33 of those are opposing converting any of the Libby courts into pickleball courts. One comment is requesting more hours and space for pickleball play, and 5 comments are in favor of relocating the pickleball courts to either Lower Libby, Soul Park, or another area. Now, as you mentioned, Chair Taylor, at this time is for public comments not relating to any agenda items. I do see that we have a number of community members joining us this evening. 2 of those have raised their hands to go ahead and speak. So again, at this point, if it's a public comment for an agenda item or an item not on the agenda, we'll go ahead and allow you to speak. With that, I'm seeing one person raising their hand, so we'll go ahead and bring that person to go ahead and speak.
Do we have a?
Yes, and Micah, you have now been promoted to go ahead and speak to share a public comment. Again, public comment at this time is for non-agenda items.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So my name is Micah Satig, and I'm a resident of 723 El Paseo Road in Ojai. I'm not here to talk about pickleball. I'm here to talk about volleyball. So I see a lot of announcements about soccer and basketball and a lot of sports going on at Sarzati Park, but I just want to make people aware that the United States Youth Volleyball League will be starting up its youth league for the spring season very soon. We're a non-competitive, equal playing time, foundational skills grass court league for players 7 to 15 years old. And we play at Sarzati Park on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. I just want to make people aware of that opportunity. Signups are running through the end of this month. And we start in April and run through early June. The other thing I want to talk about was also related to volleyball. I know that the rec center has drop-in adult soccer, drop-in adult basketball, and drop-in adult ultimate frisbee. But at council and maybe the rec center staff to consider having an adult drop-in volleyball league once a week. I think there would be lots of people in Ojai be amenable to that, and a very popular sport. There's also currently no adult volleyball pretty much in the city of Ojai, and then also very few opportunities to play indoor volleyball in the city of Ventura as well. So I think you'd have a lot of people buying into that. That's all I have to say, and so I'll mute myself.
Perfect. Thank you, Micah.
Thank you, Micah.
Yeah, and Micah, please feel free to reach out to myself. My name's Luis. I'm the Recreation Supervisor. This is actually something that we're considering, so we could definitely further explore.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for that comment. Okay.
Question, where do people go to sign up for the youth volleyball?
I think,
Christian, you can go to the website usyvl.org, USYVL, USYouthVolleyballLeague.org.
and
Thank you.
Micah, is there any collaboration with the high school volleyball? And I believe the junior high also has a team. Do you collaborate with them?
The USYVL is an organization that started in Ventura, and now it's based out of Torrance. And some of our players from the youth league do feed into the Matilda program and the Nordhoff program, as well as club teams at Ventura. So we're sort of like the base, the start where volleyball starts, and then those feed into the programs for the older kids.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
thank you. Okay, and we have, I believe, one more comment, one more hand raised.
No.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
it. For
Okay, great. And so no other public comments for items not on the agenda. So we'll move on to our police report.
Absolutely. So for the month of February, and we'll go ahead and begin by noting that not all extra patrols are logged. Deputies may be in the area conducting patrols. However, if there's no need for service, that patrol may not be logged. So we'll begin with the skate park. Calls for service. There were 2 calls for service in the month of February, 1 extra patrol, and 2 calls unrelated to recreation. For Libby Park, there was a total of 8 calls for service, 10 extra patrols, and 4 calls unrelated to recreation. For Zero Zodi Park, there were 5 calls for service, 1 citation, and 1 call unrelated to recreation. For City Hall campus, Cliffisa Park, Rotary Park, and Daly Ranch Park, we are unable to locate any calls for service or activity for the month of February.
Any questions or comments, discussions? I have to keep switching between my distant glasses and my long glasses. I can't see. How will I know if somebody wants to make a comment from the commission?
I can go ahead and share
You
that
can
with
see
you.
it? Okay. All right, then I'll leave my close-up glasses on. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Luis. And I like the new format. That is really helpful to see. And I also note on here, we didn't have any issues with the, we discussed in length the dog issue at, do you have any updates on that calls for service? We were gonna track separately calls for service for dog violations.
For,
Discuss that.
so no violations that have been brought to our attention. There have been concerns, let me rephrase. There has been a resident who had shared concerns regarding Daly Ranch Park. As from our last meeting, staff went up and posted signage reminding visitors that
Okay,
dogs need to be unleashed.
Okay, but no active calls for service
No.
from law enforcement?
No.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, and do we have a public works report tonight?
We do. So we'll go ahead and begin with Cliffisa Park. So due to the recent windstorms, the fountain area was filled with sand and leaves. Public Works addressed that. They drained the fountain and cleaned it out. Over at Daly Ranch Park, weed abatement was performed on the backside of the storm channel. At Libby Park, recent events held at Libby Park include, so recent service at Libby Park includes weed abatement performed at Lower Libby. There's new mulch spread by the Libby Playground. And the slide at Libby Playground is currently closed. There was a crack in the slide and staff has ordered a new one, so it is on their way. Additionally, a trip hazard leading to the Libby Bowl was repaired. Over at the skate park, graffiti was found in the restroom and removed. At Rotary Park, gopher abatement continues with mechanical traps. Weed abatement was performed in the park and new mulch was spread throughout the park. At Zero Zodi Park, there's a broken slide. Staff actually, we ordered a new one and actually got it installed, so that slide has been repaired. There was a crack in that one as well. And there was vandalism reported in the upper restroom, but that has been removed. And there was also graffiti reported in the Libby Bowl entrance door, and that again has been removed. We had a little bit of an incident, we had an incident where we believe it was the same individual going around with a permanent marker, and that was a graffiti. And so that has been remedied there. And with that, that concludes the Public Works report.
Do we know what's causing the cracks in the slides? Is that the same
It's-
issue, or?
Yeah, it's from usage and being exposed to the
I
elements.
guess that's a good
Yeah.
problem to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or discussion items on the Public Works report presented? No? Okay.
Not seeing any.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent items. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes? That would have been from February 23rd, or excuse me, February 3rd of '22.
Everybody's nodding they have.
Okay. Can I get any discussion? No, it's really hard for me to get used to looking up there without being able to see, sorry. Can I get a motion?
I move to accept the minutes, approve the minutes.
Thank you, and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner. And can you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and begin with Commissioner Firestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes,
Commissioner Ittner,
Yes.
Chair Taylor,
Yes.
and Commissioner Walker. Commissioner Walker, I believe you may be on mute.
Yes, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, presentations, actions, and discussion items. So we have 7A, introduction of our new commissioner, Nelson Walker. Welcome to the commission. You are.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We have quite a full agenda tonight, so not all our
Yeah.
meetings are lengthy. Tonight will be a little bit longer than normal, but welcome. It's really, really nice to see a full commission. We have our youth commissioner, and it's been a while since we've had full attendance and all seats filled, so very nice. Okay, 7B, Pickleball Facilities. I believe we have a staff report and some public comments related to this. So do you have written comments for the record that you can summarize? And then do we also have live comments? Is that right?
Yes, we
Okay.
do have, I'm seeing community members raising their hands to go ahead and speak.
Okay. Oh, I think you're actually the 33, the
Yep.
1, and the 5 were already entered into the record. So we just need to do our live comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, what I'd like to go ahead and do is just a brief summary.
Please.
And then we can go ahead and move on to public comments.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and come here. I have just a little PowerPoint that I'd like to go ahead and share with my summary, if I may.
Okay.
So a copy of the entire staff report may be found in the packet, but I'd like to go ahead and provide a quick summary and background on this issue. At its January 25th, 2022 council meeting, staff provided an update to City Council on the use of pickleball facility at City Hall and noted that the courts have been heavily used as the sport has gained much popularity. Staff continued by sharing some ideas related to pickleball facilities for City Council's consideration and noted that input had not yet been provided by the Parks and Recreation Commission. At the conclusion of the update, council discussed some ideas and ultimately determined it would refer the matter to the Parks and Recreation Commission for recommendation. I'd like to briefly walk the commission through the items discussed at that meeting, and I'll go here. So here is the current city pickleball facilities located at 401 South Ventura Street. Sound mitigation at the current City Hall pickleball courts. So the city implemented several sound mitigation measures at the site, such as limited hours of play, installed acoustifence sound reducing materials, installed a gabion wall, and required the use of green zone paddles. Additional potential options. So some minor additional sound mitigation options are available at the existing site. Staff could increase the height of the pickleball fence along the east side of the courts to match the south side of the courts. A second option for sound mitigation at the current courts is requiring new reduced sound noise equipment. Pickleball players have informed staff that new, even quieter paddles are becoming available, and the pickleball club is purchasing some of these paddles to test. Now, depending on those tests, city could require the use of lower sound paddles. It is important to note, though, that paddles are fairly expensive at this time, and some may be unable to obtain these paddles. Additionally, enforcing the requirement would be difficult. So this photo here is a photo of the lower Libby courts. So one idea that was discussed is whether to utilize court space from the tennis courts at Libby Park by either swapping tennis and pickleball courts, or to identify an alternative share use agreement. Swapping the courts would allow the number of tennis and pickleball courts to remain the same in the city, while providing pickleball players additional hours of play. The City Council also expressed an interest in hearing other ideas from the Commission and the community. Some ideas that have been identified would require potential partnership with other agencies, such as Soul Park, which is operated by the county. The county manages Soul Park. This park could be an ideal location for a new facility. Staff has not yet explored this idea, but can do so upon the recommendation of the Commission. There are some ideas, but ultimately, these are some ideas, but ultimately City Council is asking the Commission to investigate this matter and provide a recommendation. The packet has a lot more detailed about these options. As you discuss these options further, I'm happy to go ahead and provide details if the Commission wishes, but I'll turn it back over to the Chair, and I'm happy to go ahead and answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the members of the public that would like to speak now would be an appropriate time, unless the commissioners have any immediate questions before we take public comments.
I just have one question. So if we decide to do the swap where like tennis and pickleball will swap, would you still have the noise issue that you currently having with pickleball, or is it just the nature of the game? It's just louder than what you would expect.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, ultimately, what staff has done is we have gone out, we have done informal sound testing, and the measurement, as seen in the staff report, there are various spots where the sound cannot be heard, and others, such as closest to the court, obviously it is a little bit louder. If memory serves me right, it would be at, like right at 75 dBs. 75.9 dBs, and that's going to be right next to the actual court itself. But as seen in the staff report, we did test various locations, and some of those locations you cannot hear a noise from gameplay, and at the other locations it is a reduced noise level.
Excuse me? I think maybe the question was, will there still be an issue with noise at the City Hall courts if tennis is being played there?
Oh, my apologies.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay.
So will there still be neighbor complaints if tennis is being played as opposed to pickleball next to City Hall?
That's a great question, and you know, it's hard to determine at this time. From, you know, noise from gameplay from tennis, to my understanding, is lower than pickleball, but it's hard to go ahead and determine, you know, if that would be a continuous issue at this time.
Thank you.
Do we have an order in which, for public comments?
Yes.
That to start, okay.
Yes, so we'll go ahead and begin with Dwayne Williamson, and we'll go ahead and bring Dwayne to speak here. And Dwayne, you have now, let's see here. Dwayne, you should be able to speak. Can you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the options that the commission is considering is to convert one of the lower Libby tennis courts to pickleball court. And my time tonight, I'd like to talk about some of the obstacles in doing that. A little historical perspective: since the year 2000, over $700,000 has been spent on the construction and maintenance of the upper end Libby tennis courts. Of that, the city has only contributed $100,000. The Ojai Valley Tennis Club and the Ojai Civic Association has contributed $600,000 to that. Specifically in 2010, the Civic Association and the Ojai Valley Tennis Club took on a project to convert the lower Libby tennis courts into a post-tension courts. That makes it more durable, less work, less maintenance and repair on that. In appreciation for that, and in consideration of the donation, the city passed Resolution 1018, which states, wherein it agreed that the tennis club to be given first priority use of the lower Libby tennis courts for the annual Ojai Tennis Tournament, and also for club-sponsored youth clinics and tournaments. A lot of attention is focused on the Ojai Tennis Tournament. However, we have three other events that we use as well. One is the annual Jacob Voss Holiday Challenge that we have at the end of December. The second is a high performance clinic, which we're actually doing at the end of March of this year. And the fourth one is the Ventura County Junior Tennis Association, which is a summer. So it's not just the tennis tournament, but there's three other activities that we use that we need the tennis courts for. And that resolution states we have the rights to have those courts in playable condition for those. So it really makes it the transition from pickleball to tennis and tennis back to pickleball very cumbersome. You not only have to do it one time, but you have to do it 4 times. And that would be not only cost effective, but also limit the time that either the players or the pickleball players could use. In terms of upper Libby courts, considering that, City Resolution 0003 states that this upper Libby courts, along with the annual Ojai Valley tennis courts, were designated as city historical landmark. This historical landmark designation prevents the courts from being defaced, altered, or moved without 12 months prior written notice by the approval by the Historical Society. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I don't have a list, so I'll have to rely on Luis to go to the next person in the queue. Thank you.
The next person that we have is going to be Scott Burton. Scott, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Hello.
Welcome, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Scott Burton. Can you hear me well enough?
Yes.
I reside at 340A Longhorn Lane in Persimmon Hill, and I'm here to briefly discuss transitional issues with the use of Court 6 for pickleball. If any lower Libby court were converted to pickleball for pickleball use, either on a temporary or permanent basis, the need to transition tennis and then back to pickleball would thus have to occur between 1 to 4 times per year. Any permanent conversion of a lower Libby court, such as Court 6, with permanent net posts and lines would be a practical impossibility. Per city staff report, based on discussions with True Line Construction and Servicing, and confirmed by our discussions with First Serve Tennis Courts, who is a contractor retained by the tennis club to resurface all 8 courts later this month, it's not recommended to drill holes for permanent pickleball net posts into an existing post-tension concrete slab. Removal of any such permanent net posts and resurfacing the pickleball court to transition back to tennis would cost roughly $12,000. Even without the permanent pickleball net posts, the cost would still be in the neighborhood of $8,700 to transition back to tennis. Then there would be a retransition to put back the pickleball setup with the associated time and expense. Total cost for one complete transition from pickleball to tennis and back to pickleball would be between $17,000 to $21,000 a year. This happening 4 times a year, potential cost of $68,000 to $80,000, which would be well spent on a permanent, fantastic location for pickleball that we could all enjoy away from Libby Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker that we have is Jeff Jenkins. Jeff?
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Go
You
ahead.
may.
For the last speaker, I was wondering what the source of the cost estimates for the transition.
Sure, 2 sources. True Line Construction and Resurfacing, and the company who was contracted to do our resurfacing just before the Ojai Tournament, who is First Serve Tennis Courts.
So when you mentioned the transition, even without the permanent posts, that cost is for resurfacing?
Yes, because, you know, with our best efforts to put down temporary tape, the witness marks of that tape and the residue left behind is just near impossible to remove.
Thank you.
Commissioner Firestone, I think there's a detailed proposal laying out those costs too in the, right in the agenda packet. If you want to review it, it has the resurfacing breakdown costs and 2 different proposals.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Or
Sorry,
at least the
I missed
one
that.
from True Line is in there. I saw it behind the
Thank you, Commissioner.
resolutions. Okay, and I'm sorry, our speaker is,
Jeff Jenkins. Jeff, can you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
yes, thank you.
Hi, yeah, my name is Jeff Jenkins. I live at 9 Alto Drive in Oakview. Just to continue what Scott was talking about, but due to the resolution which allows OETC to have these courts in similar conditions to the other lower Libby courts for the Ojai, the Voss Holiday Challenge, the High Performance Clinic, and our VCGTA tournaments, using court 6 will cost the city or pickleball group roughly $58,000, $84,000 a year, and there'll be some significant downtime to boot. So whether the pickle court is temporary or permanent, the cost to restore the court for tennis will run between $17,000 and $21,000 for each of the 4 events. Colored lines and temporary tape will both require the same amount of cost to restore. The tape does not remove and leaves a layer that will cause the ball to slide if not removed. Pressure washing doesn't work because it removes the entire surface of the court. So there's no really easy solution here, but with that kind of yearly cost to use court 6 at Lower Libby, you can build a brand new post-tension concrete court for 4 pickleball courts. Could be built every year for that kind of money spent. The other negative would be the downtime of restriping the court would also be significant time. It'll take probably take 3 weeks per each event, which means the courts will be down for 12 weeks a year or 3 months. So again, and then that with the cost of the $58,000, $84,000 per year to the city or the pickleball players. So I would say pickleball is an awesome sport, and there's a lot of tennis players who love to play that game too, but Lower Libby is not the place to do it. The cost, the downtime, the noise to the neighboring community makes this, in my opinion, a poor solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Mike Borders. And Mike, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm Mike Borders, 1503 San Gabriel Street in Ojai. I want to address the proposed swapping of the City Hall court for Court 6. per the city staff report, which you may have looked at, the initial cost to do the swap would be $36,705. It's really important to understand that while the pickleball use on court 6 could have more hours of overall play than the current city hall setup, the city is still required to make court 6 available for all tennis club events. Currently, there's 3 or 4 per year, as the city hall court would simply not be suitable for the tennis club events. As indicated before, the cost for, and these numbers come directly from the staff report, by the way, the cost for a single two-way transition of court 6, which means from pickleball to tennis back to pickleball, would be a minimum of $17,500, and court 6 would be unusable for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. If we were trying to minimize the transition costs, we could schedule, say, only one transition per year, say in mid-December, with the tennis club use running from then through April, which is the end of the Ojai tennis tournament, and the transition back to pickleball taking until mid-May. This would pose a 5-month gap in the use of court 6 for pickleball. Just the combined cost of the initial City Hall court 6 swap, which is $36,705, and a single two-way transition of court 6 to accommodate the tennis club activities, $17,500, would total $54,205. If there were 2 transitions per year, say, mid-December through mid-January to accommodate the year-end Jacob Voss Holiday Challenge, and then from early March through mid-May to accommodate the March High Performance Clinic and the annual Ojai Tournament, this would double the transition cost to $35,000 and would only reduce the pickleball gap from 5 months to 3.5 months. The total first-year expenses for that arrangement would be over $71,000. Outrageous. During the period of tennis club use of court 6, as well as that transitioning time, everybody has to understand that if the City Hall court will have been converted to tennis by then, there would be no public pickleball courts available. The significant gap in the available public courts for pickleball, whether it's 5 months or 3.5 months, is simply unacceptable. This fact alone should rule out the conversion of the City Hall courts.
Thank you.
That's the end of my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have George Conrad. George, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Go ahead.
My name is George Conrad. I live at 2081 Camino del Arroyo. And my suggestion, as will be discussed by subsequent speakers, is that the city leaves the City Hall courts for pickleball, at least on an interim basis, and possibly on a permanent basis. Even without the proposed court swap, that is leaving the City Hall courts for pickleball, it would be suggested to convert court 6 to pickleball, but this is still very expensive. $21,840 to initially convert court 6 to pickleball. This is per the staff's report figures. And then $17,500 is said previously each time it is transitioned to tennis use and back. And the significant gaps in utilization of court 6 for either pickleball or tennis would also be created. Now, rather than spending this significant amount of money to convert court 6 to pickleball, followed by further expenditures to transition back and forth between pickleball and tennis, I would strongly suggest the city use that same amount of money to locate and develop a permanent dedicated pickleball complex elsewhere in the city. As in this example, Soul Park, as it was mentioned earlier. Now, the out-of-pocket expenses to originally develop the current City Hall pickleball courts were less than $18,000. The $40,000 to $60,000 savings from not converting court 6 to pickleball, and this is just in the first year, would go a long way toward funding a new dedicated permanent pickleball complex. And once this permanent pickleball complex is established, the city could decide whether it is feasible to continue using the City Hall courts for pickleball, possibly with restricted hours and sound reducing measures, which I think if this was to take place, I think everyone is concerned with all this would be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's the end of mine.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tina, and we'll go ahead and. Tina, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tina Leslie, and I live at 131 South Padre Juan. And I have lived and worked as an educator in the Ojai Valley for the last 40 years. I first came to Ojai to play the Ojai Tennis Tournament when I was in high school. Both the tournament and the city of Ojai were unforgettable to me. I returned to make Ojai my home and have been involved with the Ojai Tennis Tournament for the past 30 years. The Ojai Tennis Club, besides hosting a world-class tournament, works to promote tennis for both youth and adults in the city of Ojai. Tennis in the city of Ojai are synonymous. In 2009, almost entirely through the efforts of the tennis club and members of the Ojai tennis community, a submission was made to the USTA in a nationwide contest sponsored by the USTA to find the best tennis town in the United States. And Ojai was selected as the second best tennis town with a $50,000 cash prize to be given to the city in 2009. The Libby Park tennis courts were a significant factor in this award. The Ojai Tournament, which began in 1896, is the longest running tournament held in one location in the United States. Being the scheduler for the tournament for more years than I can remember, I know that Ojai utilizes all playable courts in Ojai, Ventura, and Oxnard. Every court, public and private, including schools and private homes, are all in use. The 120-year-old tournament brings approximately 1,200 players, along with their coaches, parents, friends, and spectators to the Ojai Valley. All of the Ojai and Ventura hotels are full for the tournament, and restaurants, groceries, and retail shops are all positively impacted economically by the tournament. Libby Park is the premier venue. All Libby courts, upper and lower, including Court 6, are used continuously throughout the tournament. The Pac-12, who are excited to be returning to the Ojai this year to play both their men's and women's championships, utilize the court for scheduled practice and matches. The CIF Boys Championships, the Junior Division, Community College, Independent Colleges, and the Open Division all use Libby Park courts during the course of the tournament. As stated, all courts in Ojai are used during the tournament. The Ojai Tennis Club's mission is to promote tennis, especially youth tennis in the Ojai Valley. While the past 2 years are not an indication of usual court usage, tennis in the Valley is very strong. I see I'm out of time, and I'm just going to say that I think that we really need to find a place that pickleball works for everyone, and that is not Libby Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Robin. And Robin, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Okay. This is Robin Gerber, 51 Terramina Lane in Ojai. Let me start by thanking you for your volunteer service serving on this commission. We need all of you. Tennis in Ojai is a growing sport played by all ages and many of our families with young children. Tennis has more than 21 million people playing in the United States, a 30% increase last year nationwide, nearly 3 million playing tennis for the first time, and a large increase in young players. So please, don't buy into the false narrative that tennis is anything other than vibrant and growing. Our courts are often full in Ojai. Loss of even one court would adversely affect the Libby tennis community. And remember that the key measurement of court utilization is the utilization rate during peak hours. Also, our courts, as you've heard, are rented out to Weil Academy, other tennis instructors. They're used for USTA matches, for the city recreation department, for teaching, for World Team Tennis. The idea that these courts are underused is false and absurd. The truth is we could use some more tennis courts. We only have 8 public courts, and this is a tennis mecca where thousands play over the course of a year. Tonight, this commission can end the dissension and the division created between the people who play these two sports. Please recommend that the city's time and resources be used to create dedicated pickleball courts at an appropriate location like Soul Park and not at Libby. Stop, please stop, the divisive conversation about taking from tennis to satisfy pickleball. That is not the Ojai spirit. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we will have John Welborn. John, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Very good. My name is John Welborn. I reside at 1302 Ayers Avenue in Ojai, and I'm speaking on behalf of my daughter, Katya Welborn, who is the head tennis pro for the city of Ojai and the Recreation Department. She'd be speaking right now. She wanted to very badly, but she's teaching tennis right now at the lower courts, so she's there an awful lot. Katya is on the courts. Her schedules are Monday through Saturdays, morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Her maximum number of students in a class is 12, and she uses up to 3 courts, depending if the courts are taken by the public at that time. Katya sees firsthand just how much these courts are used. They are being used on a daily basis when she is there, weekdays, weekends. She uses the courts for clinics, privates, and recreation department classes and tournament leagues. The Weil Academy, USTA, Ojai Tennis Tournament, High Performance Clinic, Holiday Adult Tennis Tournament, World Team Tennis. There's a lot of tennis being played on those lower courts. So when I do hear these people saying that they don't see people there, I think they must be looking at the wrong time. It just doesn't seem feasible to use the lower Libby courts or court 6 or any other public courts as a pickleball court with the rate of courts being used by tennis players at this time. Katya has actually had a petition out there just for the last week or so, and she's gotten 220 tennis players who have signed a petition to leave the lower Libby courts alone, please. A lot of these are children, a lot of these are youth, kids, but it's everybody. Everybody plays tennis. So that's her opinion. She sees it firsthand how much it's being used and how much it affects the youth of Ojai. She has a lot of kids in her classes, and these are going to be the future tennis players of tomorrow too. In fact, they're the tennis players of today, but they're going to be hot shots when they get older. Now, as far as me, I play tennis and pickleball myself, and I went down to Soul Park and looked at the park. And number one, the park is just a beautiful park, and I do believe our resources and time and money and energy could best be put in creating some new courts. They do have pickleball court. They have a nice pickleball court right now, but I think that the future of pickleball will be great, but I think it would be best in some other location. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Katrina Reich-Schmidt. And Katrina, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Katrina Reich-Schmidt. I live at 511 West Eucalyptus Street in downtown Ojai. As evidenced by the current problem arising from the City Hall pickle courts and by numerous lawsuits around the country, pickleball presents a very significant noise impact. Several of these lawsuits or threatened legal actions involve claims of serious injury to neighbors' health and safety. The so-called noise study done by city staff on court number 6 was not very scientific and may not have captured all of the potential noise, potentially emanating from 16 players using 4 courts. And we believe there were only 4 players involved in the test. So a good professionally done sound study would be good. The pickleball noise potentially coming from court 6 would disturb the tennis players on the adjacent courts. They're incompatible playing next to each other. They're completely different noise and intensity. So those players playing at Lower Libby would be severely impacted, and possibly considerably more than the neighbors who live up the hill. So the noise problem from court 6 would be potentially larger concern than the City Hall courts, because the court number 6 play presumably would not be restricted to the current hours of operation of the City Hall courts, and presumably would involve evening play under the lights. So the time exposure of the pickleball sound is much longer potentially. I believe Robin Gerber sent the commission an LA Times article that came out today about pickleball. And it was basically, stating that there are multiple noise lawsuits across the country related to sound. And the article basically says that there is no question that pickleball is noisy. And researchers have shown that the sound of one solid pickleball paddle hitting one wiffle ball can be more than 25 decibels louder than even the hardest swung felt covered tennis ball. Pickleball is about 70 dBA, which is 70 decibels 100 feet away, which is the same sound as a freeway or a vacuum cleaner. And if you're hearing that all day long, or when you're trying to play tennis, that is really not a good combination. So please consider an alternative site for pickleball. They deserve a good facility, and tennis deserves to keep their beautiful facility, their historic facility in downtown Ojai at Libby Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a reminder to the callers, we have a large number of comments, to please be respectful of everyone's time and keep an eye on the clock. I believe it's visible through the Zoom meeting as well. Correct. We don't want to be in a position where we're having to cut someone off, and we certainly want to hear what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker we have is Leslie Gachet. Leslie, can you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Leslie Gosh, and I live at 2048 Sumac Drive in Miramonte. So in the past, the city has declined the use of the Libby Park tennis courts for non-tennis activities, such as BMX bicycling, skateboarding, roller skating, and soccer. So they've also declined the use of a game closely related to tennis, which is paddle tennis. And I'm here to speak about that. So back in 2010, I, along with several others, and with the support of the United States Paddle Tennis Association, wanted to convert one of the Libby courts to paddle tennis. And our request was denied. And we didn't put up a fight. We respected the decision. We respected the historical significance of the courts. And we eventually found a site at Soul Park. So those courts that you see on Soul Park were built by myself and our group. So we had proceeded to petition the county to allow us to create the Soul Park Paddle Tennis Center. We did not ask the county for financial assistance. Our group embarked on a fundraising campaign, and along with the generosity of the people in the community, we were able to get those courts built. So as the previous speaker stated, the permanent use of court 6 for pickleball is just not feasible. Even the interim use of court 6 for pickleball is less than ideal from a pickleball group perspective, and it would greatly upset the Libby Park tennis community. And again, it would be very expensive and create a significant gap in the utilization of court 6 for any sport, pickleball or tennis. And I thank you very much.
Before you disconnect, I just have a question. Does, to clarify, paddle tennis, does it use the full-size tennis court to play, or is it?
No, no, those 3 courts that you see, they are, paddle tennis courts are just slightly larger than pickleball courts.
Okay.
And paddle tennis uses a decompressed tennis ball and special rackets as well.
Okay.
So it doesn't have the noise problem, but the courts are not available for pickleball. They would, the size is just not comparable.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
And next we have Carolyn.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, just for the speaker, what do you think the reception of adding pickleball courts in Soul Park would be to the paddleball players?
I think it would be a great addition. They've already set up a pickleball court at Soul Park, so they do coexist on the weekends. And primarily the weekends, paddle players go out there to play. And we've been seeing a lot of action from players from LA. We used to hold tournaments out there, and we had a number of players come from Venice Beach and Central Coast. They would come down and play paddle. So I think it would be very compatible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have Carolyn. Carolyn, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Okay. Okay. Thank you. My name is Carolyn Burke. I live at 8224 Camp Chaffee Road. And I know we've given you a lot of information this evening, so I'm just going to sort of reiterate some of the key points that we make tonight. The key points really underline the main reasons why the Libby Park tennis courts should be reserved for tennis and not pickleball, even on a temporary basis. The first one is that I want to mention is the historic nature and the designation of these courts for use as tennis courts. That's been outlined in detail for you. There have been significant financial contributions by the Ojai Civic Association and the tennis club to not only build, but to also maintain these courts. The time and cost of reverting courts from pickleball to tennis has been talked about at length. And again, that's prohibitive for the city and pickleball organizations. The city of Ojai has had agreements and policies for many years concerning the use of the tennis courts at Libby Park. There is a large recreational tennis community that uses these courts, and the schedule's been laid out for you tonight. The courts are very well used. And these courts are the home to the historic and the venerable Ojai Tournament, as well as other events hosted by the Ojai Tennis Club, and the courts are maintained by the club so that they are in the condition, the pristine condition required to host those events. The problem of pickleball courts needn't be an either or proposition here in Ojai. I think we can find something that will help both organizations. You know, the Ojai has a longstanding and proud tradition of tennis. And we just feel like it would be really fair to the pickleball people to find them a home, a permanent home, somewhere else in our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
And next we have Mark Weil. And Mark, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mark Weil. I live at 309 Park Road. And obviously I've got a big stake in in the Libby Park courts, remaining tennis courts, not just selfishly, but as a board member also of the Ojai Valley Tennis Club. And what's a little bit scary to us, commissioners, is that it feels like you don't really understand or know much about us or who we are. And we've had to lay out kind of this, all this information that it should be well known, but I guess it's not. So we've kind of pounded you over the head with it, but it really is important to know that a lot of us are members of a board of a nonprofit that is, we are caretakers of Libby Park. We take care of that park. That's why it looks so beautiful. And as one of the other speakers said, you know, about 15 years ago, we raised about $250,000 to uplift, to give a big facelift and redesign Lower Libby, and then take care of Upper Libby. It's not, they're one and the same. So, you know, you can't just throw all that history out, all that blood, sweat, and tears and money that we've raised and contributed to caretaking Libby Park and just say, well, this is a new sport coming up and we're gonna come in and we're gonna just take this court away. It's just absurd, and that's why it's hitting us in such a bad way. So you guys really, please look at the history of this, look at the facts, look at who we are, and that we, you know, this city is very lucky that the board of the Ojai Valley Tennis Club, a nonprofit, is willing to take care of the public facility. And that's what we've done for, I mean, maybe 100 years. And just this March, we're spending $20,000 of our own money that we just raised to resurface all 8 Libby Park courts in association with, you know, the Civic Association and the city. So we are all in, as we are all in with the pickleball community. I feel like we're one and the same, and we want them to have a home and to find a really, court 6 is not enough for them. One court is actually not enough. They need 2. They need 2 courts with 4, you know, the 8 pickleball courts at least, and a place where they can just make all the noise they want. They can play pickleball until their heart's desire, make as much noise and not bother anybody. And that's why, you know, all signs point to Soul Park. So please go forward, give Luis the power to go forward and investigate Soul Park, make it happen. And I tell you, the whole tennis community here will help you make this happen, whether it's fundraising, going out there and digging holes and putting up fences. We're going to help make it happen. So these are our neighbors. We want to help. Thank you so much.
And just to clarify, the commission doesn't have any preconceived positions on the topic. We're being asked by the council to weigh in on all the factors. So just to be clear, that's what tonight's meeting is about, is a fact-finding position of the commission.
Good. You got a lot now.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tim Kraut. Tim, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. At your last meeting on February 3rd, 2022, I suggested that a good place for this commission to start when considering the pickleball needs in Ojai is the grant deeds to Libby Park. Libby Park was given to the Civic Association by Edward Libby in 1917, and the Civic Association gave it to the city in 1971. I gave Luis copies of these grant deeds for each one of you commissioners. Having read over these documents several times myself, I found no evidence of exclusive rights for the use of the Lower Libby Park for tennis or any other group. Also, Resolution 10-18, adopted by the City Council on April 27th, 2010, only gives priority to the Ojai Tennis Club for 3 events a year. Not exclusive rights or in perpetuity for all the time, or no mention of the number of courts. Maybe you guys only need 4 courts for that tournament. I see no reason why the pickleball community couldn't utilize a small portion of Lower Libby Park. 2 of the underutilized courts converted to 8 permanent pickleball courts to provide additional recreation opportunities for the city's rec department programs. We, the pickleball group, have repurposed an old abandoned court that sat empty for 50 years. We certainly can do that again and on our dime. Hopefully, going forward, we can do this on a factual basis and not on opinions. No need to talk about this for 4 years or ask various groups for money. Our solution is simple. Keep the current site as is and expand Lower Libby with 8 more permanent courts. We can do it, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we have Mark Bodycon. Mark, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can. So thank you for your time. I wanted to thank the commission also just for your service. I live on Daly Road. I've lived in Ojai for 30 years. So I'm both a tennis player and a pickleball player and have enjoyed Libby Park for many, many years and have been thoroughly enjoying the pickleball courts over at the City Hall for the last year or so. I guess I commend actually the tennis community for the representation that they've had tonight, you know, just in kind of arguing their position. I think that Tim's points that he just made on behalf of the pickleball committee or community are well taken and important to consider for the commission. I think bottom line from my perspective as both the tennis and a pickleball player is that I think that the current courts at the City Hall should be maintained really for the duration until some type of a better, more permanent solution or additional solution is finalized. I think that the mitigations that have been funded by the pickleball community as well as the city are more than ample to address whatever types of noise concerns there are among the neighborhood there. I do, at least from my discussions with other pickleball players, I do think that in addition to considering Libby, that, looking at some type of a permanent solution at Seoul or frankly, even Sarasota or other types of locations in the city is viable. What I would personally like to see is a permanent solution with some type of a really enjoyable pickleball complex that we could also hold tournaments and attract, players, which we already do from outside of the community, just like tennis does, and bringing in, revenue to the city as well as reputation and building a reputation as a pickleball mecca, just like Ojai is currently a tennis mecca. So I encourage and urge the commission to really look at supporting this kind of new adventure in Ojai that I realize it's something that is difficult for a lot of people to contend with, but that's, I guess, at this point, your guys' job to be creative and aggressive and looking for viable solutions that don't disadvantage the hundreds and hundreds of particularly senior players that are playing pickleball more so than any other sport in the city. So I appreciate your time and thank you for your support ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ian. Ian, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be quick because I feel like most of the points have already been made. So my name's Ian. I live in downtown on Summer Street. Mostly, I want to just echo, all the tennis community here and all the points that have been made already. I'm in strong opposition to the conversion of Court 6. I think calling Court 6 one of the lesser used courts is honestly laughable. I think most tennis players tend to use the lower courts more often because of the proximity of the bathroom, the proximity of parking, the proximity of shade. I don't think converting the court is a good idea. I think it's obvious here that the community doesn't either. The cost issue has been made abundantly clear by all the speakers. I think a new facility is going to be the best solution. Going back to Karen's question at the very beginning, will there still be a noise complaint if there's a court conversion at Court 6? And the answer is yes. The noise complaint would come from the tennis players because we would all have to play down there while there's 4 courts of pickleball going. And just the other day, 2 weekends ago, I was down there with a hitting partner, and there was somebody practicing pickleball against the brick wall there, and I could barely hear my hitting partner from across the net. So I can't imagine what that's going to be like when there's 4 courts going and we're trying to play tennis. Additionally, like Robin said, what isn't discussed in the Google Doc that was sent out is that tennis is a growing sport too. USTA reported 22% growth in 2020 and an additional 30% growth in 2021 right after that. And Ojai is becoming a destination for tennis lovers. Just this Saturday, I went down to the courts. Every single court, upper and lower, was used, and there were people walking around waiting to get on a court. So again, the idea that these courts aren't being used or don't fill up is completely false. Lastly, I encourage you all to Google pickleball court conversion or Google pickleball versus tennis. It sounds funny, but honestly, you'll find numerous articles, tons of them, about cities all across the country that are having this exact feud right now. You're pitting 2 sporting communities against each other, and it's tearing a community apart where it doesn't really need to. You can put these courts somewhere else. You don't have to ruffle any feathers. Outside of that, I did send an email before this as well. I refer to that for any other previous points I've made. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brenda Kraut. And Brenda, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm Brenda Kraut. I live at 230 Saddle Lane in the city of Ojai. And for the month of February, we tabulated the number of players utilizing the 8 tennis courts at Libby Park and the number of players using the pickleball courts. As you remember, the pickleball courts take up 1 tennis court. We personally observed the number of players 2 times a day, morning and afternoon, every weekday at both locations. So this was a total of 20 days. The number of players at each location was as follows. At Libby Park, there was a cumulative total of 372 players. This is an average of 19 players per day on 8 tennis courts. So that is 2.3 players per day per tennis court. On the pickleball courts, there was a cumulative total of 599 players. This is an average of 30 players per day on 1 tennis court. So this shows that there are 13 times more people, Ojai citizens, using the 1 tennis court that has been converted to pickleball than the number of people, Ojai citizens, using the 8 tennis courts at Libby Park. How would the tennis community be hurt by giving up 1 or 2 courts at Libby Park to be converted to pickleball? Also, I wanted to say that we could have rallied 50, 60, 70 people to pickleball people to comment tonight, but in respect of your time, we didn't do that because we have done that several times in front of the city council, and you have access to all of that information, and we felt that this would be repetitive and be a waste of your time for us to have 50 or 60 of the pickleball people saying the same thing. So we didn't think it was fair to you, and we know that you can access that information. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jack. Jack, can you confirm you can hear us, please? Jack, can you confirm that you can hear us? I believe you may be on mute. Okay, and we'll go on to the next speaker. And Jack, please keep your hand up if you'd like to go ahead and speak. And next we'll go to Karen Quimby. Karen, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Karen Quimby and I live at 511 Oak Creek Lane in Ojai. And I represent the neighbors and property owners of the current pickleball courts who have suffered through more than 2 years of noise intrusion into their homes. My family owns the 2-story apartments that are the closest to the current courts at 408 South Ventura Street, just 128 feet away. Our tenants have been driven mad by the constant popping noises of the plastic balls hitting the paddles that send constant, sharp, percussive sounds into their homes 7 hours a day, every day. Even with their double pane windows closed, plus they are no longer able to enjoy their yards and balconies. An acoustical engineer cited in the LA Times article that came out just today noted that the impulse sound that is generated in pickleball is inherently louder than those of sports like tennis or basketball. A loud tennis shot will usually fall short of 60 decibels, but the engineer said he's recorded peaks of 85 decibels from a backyard more than 50 feet away from a pickleball court. This is the noise your neighbors hear, your Ojai neighbors hear every day. It occurs 7 days a week, 7 hours a day, 365 days a year. It is intrusive, disturbing, mentally stressful, and unacceptable. Not only is the city violating its own noise ordinance, it is failing its moral obligation to be a good neighbor. We appreciate that the report in front of you repeatedly acknowledges the major noise issues the current courts on Ventura Street pose. It details the attempted and failed sound mitigation efforts at the current site. When considering the lower Libby courts, the report suggests that Court 5 poses a challenge because it's roughly 140 feet away from the closest residence, and therefore the report suggests Court 6 is the best option. If the report suggests that a court that is 140 feet from a residence is problematic, then certainly the courts that are 128 feet from our residence is even more unacceptable. You cannot allow play to continue at this current site. We believe the best permanent solution for pickleball courts is at Soul Park. There, players can not only play without disturbing nearby residents, they can hold tournaments and expand the courts to accommodate the ever-growing number of players. But until such time as the city works out the use of Soul Park, we strongly advocate that you recommend to the city to swap the current pickleball courts on Ventura Street with the lower Libby Court number 6. This is an immediate win-win-win solution for all involved. The pickleball players can play over double the time they can play now and accommodate their growing numbers. They have permanent bathrooms and parking. The tennis players do not lose a court, and the neighbors can finally have quiet in their homes and yards again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Miley. Bill, would you be so kind to confirm that you can hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. My family and I have lived here since 1968. I am concerned about the repetitive sounds by pickleball play. The administrative memo speaks to the sound noise factor. At the beginning, there was little clear information about sounds pickleball play generates. Some discussion at the city council meeting focused on noise affecting nearby residents. Agreement was to try it out. One council person was more concerned than others. Each time the 1 to 4 courts are used, residents inside their homes hear the pop, pop, pop of the repetitive pickleball hit, the sounds of players and watchers expressing joy and responses. Anytime play occurred, which could be from sun up to sundown, this repetitive noise was intruding into their lives. The noise ordinance includes testing for impact impulse sound, which the pickleball paddle hit is. The standard decibel meter does not register that. No one knew at the beginning this was an impact impulse sound, so it was not measured. One key factor to this major noise problem, not like a baseball game, which is over in several hours, is because it's so popular, the hit sound repeats as long as the play continues. It is the repetitive sound. The more players, the more repeating sounds. Pop, 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 pop. Up to 16 times players at a time. These rapidly repeating sounds can be also described as persistent, unrelenting, continual, incessant, and constant. One homeowner filed suit against the city for violation of the noise ordinance. It was resolved for several years by limiting the play hours and agreeing to some sound mitigation and green paddles. That's what exists now. We contacted the sound engineer engineering firm in Tucson, Arizona. They told us about the pickleball hit being an impulse sound. They are S&W, Acoustic and Noise Control, Spendarian, and Willis. They were mentioned in the LA Times article. In summary, pickleball play on this court is not suitable when applying the city noise ordinance. The ordinance clearly describes the need to measure impact sounds that was not done. The pickleball repetitive sound by the human ear was recorded and shared with the city council members and also the city manager. An alternate location is needed and necessary to eliminate this. Nobody knew about this at the start. We and they all know now. Stoll Park is the best choice to work on. Matillahawk school courts have been used by them in the past and could be an interim solution. I heard also just now that there's weekend pickleball play at Stoll Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Murphy. And Patrick, would you be
yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is sort of deja vu all over again, because I was on the commission a little over 2 years ago when we had this exact discussion with almost the exact same people talking about both directions on which way to go. Totally respect the tennis community. I've said this at several different meetings, made my living down there for 15 years, teaching tennis and running the tennis program. But just, I think we have to all kind of come to the conclusion that pickleball is on the rise across the country. And tennis, although I've heard the comment that it's up 20%, nationally, I don't think it's up 20% in the Ojai Valley. And a lot of that's just due to the ages of people. Ojai is skewing upwards in age, which is going to probably translate into more pickleball players moving down the line. So my suggestion 2 years ago, and it still remains a viable suggestion, is to permanently convert 2 of the lower courts to 8 pickleball courts. You're going to need more pickleball courts at some point. And whatever decision you guys recommend to the city council, I just want to remind you to look at the long term. We sort of went for a short-term fix last time. You want to look long term. I think it's almost a moot point to talk about Stoll Park since we have no control over that park. And if and when the city does, then that can be a viable alternative. But tonight, there was a lot of us and them language. We like you guys fine, just not in our neighborhood. All that kind of derisive sort of comments that we just have to find a medium way to work it out for both groups. Tennis, like I said, made a living at it. I disagree with the fact that you can't play tennis next to a pickleball court. It's just a matter of focus. And that's, I don't know, that's a different argument for a different time. But anyway, I'm kind of coming out on the side of you need a permanent situation, a permanent set of pickleball courts. You can't have people putting them up and setting them down. And like we did over at Matillahawk, that's moving backwards, not forwards. And I think the pickleball community deserves that. They've shown that over the years. So thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Next, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name here, Sigrid. Could you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sigrid Bressler, and I live at 340 Longhorn Lane since 1989, which is located southwest of court number 6 in Persimmon Hill. And as a homeowner, my concern is the noise level and how it will impact the peacefulness in my neighborhood. Now, Katrina Rice Schmidt addressed many of my concerns about the noise level. And it was mentioned that a noise study was conducted by city staff on court number 6. I would like to be reassured that when the noise study was done, it had 16 players using 4 courts, not 4 players. And as was mentioned by Brenda, Kraut, she mentioned how many players they have in a day playing pickleball as opposed to tennis. I also would like to address another issue that I find might be a concern, and it's the off-street parking at the lower courts. A few years back, I was hit by a driver on my bicycle as the parked cars forced one to ride in the traffic lane. I hope that we find a peaceful location for pickleball. It's a great sport. It's great exercise. I do not want it in Libby Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, I'm seeing Jack has his hand raised. Jack, can you confirm you can hear us, please?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. I just arrived in San Diego, so I had no reception the first time. This is Jack Richards. My wife and I are both retirees from the city of Ventura. We're currently living on 36 Kunkel Street in Oakview. I'm one of the people that spent a lot of time with Tim and Brenda Kraut in making these courts, repaving and painting and everything else. So we all have a stake in it. I'm here not so much to talk about the tennis players. I love the fact that Mark Weil was trying to find some kind of medium for us to all get together, and that they're going to come over wherever we go and help build courts. And thank you for that, Mark. But I do want to talk about this sport and how it's just how it's growing in the nation. I know we've talked about this quite a bit, but not just the nation, locally. And I want to go over Ventura County. I think it's really important the city of Ventura just takes note of some of this stuff in the city of Ojai. In the city of Ventura, there's 2 locations right now with a total of 10 temporary courts. Port Hueneme, that little city by the ocean, they have 10 permanent courts in the ground posts. And that's amazing. City of Camarillo, 3 locations, a total of 4 permanent courts and 6 temporary courts, but they're going to modify that. The city council just approved $1.4 million for more permanent courts in a 4th location for that city. Simi Valley has 3 locations. They have 24 permanent courts, 4 temporary courts. I'll make this quick. The city of Thousand Oaks, 2 courts, 8 permanent. In Santa Barbara, it's just growing incredibly as well. I won't cover those cities as much. Carp has a couple courts. Santa Barbara has 12 permanent courts at 3 locations, temporary courts, because that's not enough. But I want to take my last minute here and just talk about the growth of this sport. This sport, per the Sports Fitness Industry Association, for the 2nd year in a row, is the fastest growing sport in the nation out of 120 studied sports. Currently, we have 4.8 million players in the nation, and it's growing at the rate I just explained, nearly 40% over the last 2 years. I just think it's something we have to address, and I'm not going to, a couple things as far as us working together. I think that's so important. We worked hard on these courts across from or at City Hall, and I think it's so important that they stay where they're at. I feel for everybody involved with the noise, and I think we need to continue to find a way to try to bring that down. However, this has been approved, and our monies were put into it. Thank you for your time tonight, commissioners. I appreciate your time.
I have one question for you before you disconnect there. On the numbers that you were citing for the temporary courts that were converted throughout the cities that you mentioned, I was just curious if when you say temporary courts, were they converted from prior tennis courts or created in a temporary setting?
That's a great question. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure on that. I'm on the ad hoc committee, and we came up with these numbers, and I just wanted to let you know how it's growing. I can tell you that in almost every location, they did start as temporary courts because of its growth. And number 1 in the nation, they made a lot of permanent courts, and they are continuing to do that. So I just love to see Ojai do this as well. just to be ahead of the ball. I traveled 8 states in the last 11 months and Western states. And in every city I stopped, my wife and I traveled on a 45-foot diesel. We could find a pickleball game going on through Pickle. It's called Pickleball Finder on an app. It's just growing at an incredible rate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. And with that, I do see a handful of other community members joining us, but none with their hands raised at this point. I will ask if there are any other community members that wish to go ahead and speak. Please use the raise hand feature. And not seeing any.
Okay, so we'll move into our commission discussion on this item. I can do it a number of ways since we're on Zoom. If I don't know if it's more customary for everybody to unmute or just listen until they have something to say, but based on my participation in the last round where we discussed moving pickleball here to the city, we didn't really know ahead of time the issues that we were going to be facing, and I think the city staff has done a great job trying to mitigate as those issues come up. So it sounds like we have a couple of different options on the table. One is to perhaps keep it and also expand. One is to completely move to a new location, which has a number of possibilities, whether it's the lower Libby or to a Soul Park seems to keep coming up. But maybe we need to break it down into a little bit more, addressing the new equipment that is available, if we can keep that. Is there a certain discussion that you guys want to lay out since we're not all together? Commissioner Wilson, yes.
I would like to offer a couple of suggestions. One, as we've heard, and I want to thank all the folks that did comment in the public comment section for a lot of really valuable information and some good ideas. And I think they've demonstrated that the real, to me at least, the real issue here is that this is a bit more complex of a decision and a project, and it needs some more in-depth investigation. Some solutions have been put forward, some options have been put forward, but I'm not sure that we have all the information that we need to actually seriously consider those options. The other thing I'd like to offer is that I did go through the administrative report, and I want to thank you, Louise, for that very thorough work. I have a number of questions about some of the information in the report. I have a few corrections and a few comments. Some of these actually do address the newer information that we have and emerging equipment, emerging sound mitigation technology. And some of the questions I have were in fact answered by the public comments. But I offered the questions, one, not necessarily to get answers tonight, but to actually suggest that these are the kinds of questions, and this is the kind of depth that we need to go into. I guess the upshot of what I'm saying is I'd like to offer some of the questions, but I'd also like to at least put on the table the idea that we need, and I appreciate that this was done before, but it needs to be done in a different way, that we have an ad hoc committee from the commission to work with the staff to really surface all the questions, surface all the viable options, and do as the Caneo Recreation District did, do a pro and con, advantages, disadvantages comparison of all the realistic possibilities, and do that with facts and figures and real data, real information, verifiable information, so that we could develop a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan for pickleball in the city of Ojai, and a peaceful resolution, so that we're not pitting neighbors and athletes and other people against each other. So I'm happy to raise some questions and or make some corrections to the report if you're interested. But I do think that ultimately we're going to have to dig into this a lot more.
Thank you. Comments?
I completely agree with Commissioner Wilson.
I'm sorry, say it again. You agree?
I do, yeah.
Okay. I would agree. I think it's not something that we're going to be, I mean, just based on my participation the last time, it is a very complex issue, and we know a lot more now than we did going into it. We did have an ad hoc committee. I believe Commissioner, I know I sat on it, and I believe Commissioner Intner, right? We sat on it. We worked with, we had representatives from both communities, city staff, recreation staff, and the meetings were really productive, and I think that's got us to where we are today. But again, looking back, we had no way of knowing that the noise, I think we knew that it potentially could be an issue, but we weren't really totally educated on the intensity of the issue, specifically how it impacted the neighboring communities. I would like to ask, since we have the a city attorney with us, or assistant city attorney, assistant, there was a public comment made about resolution 10-18, and that resolution is in the packet. If I understood the public comment correctly, it made it sound like the use of the court was limited in scope to 3 events, and I would just ask that you read that and educate the commission on it. I don't read it that way. I read it that the city was accepting the improvements to the Lower Libby complex, and that the events, the tennis tournament, club-sponsored youth clinics being plural, and for nonprofit tournaments, that's 3 types of events, but not 3 events, and that they are to be given priority for those types of events to happen throughout the calendar year. So it would seem that a short discussion to end a location, as far as Lower Libby goes, if we're relying on these past resolutions and decisions, that we need clarification on this resolution and the intention of the city, and how they adopted the improvements and the intentions of their use.
Sure. Good evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Epi Margolin. I'm the assistant city attorney. I mostly work with the planning commission. Based on our reading of the resolution, we've come to a similar conclusion. Our office has that resolution 1018 establishes priority use requirements for the 3 uses that the chair mentioned, but does not rule out other uses, and just allows the city, if it wished, possibly to move forward with some of the plans discussed tonight.
Okay. And so that being said, it seems, given the complex needs of the sports being different, the pickleball has a different striping pattern, different sizes. If it's not feasible to transition from one sport to the next, which is why they moved from there in the first place. So having this resolution clarifying their priority use on those courts, it seems like it is not in the commission's purview to deviate until council provides more guidance on their intention on revoking 1018 or coming up with a different, this is the operating plan. And I think we know that they don't transition easily from pickleball play to tennis play should the tennis club want to hold a type of youth clinic or nonprofit tournament. I mean, it seems to me that it's just a loophole that if we say that the pickleball can have it unless these tennis events are being held, they're just going to retitle their events, and it seems like a lot of work for either city staff to convert them or even the volunteer staff. So I think this resolution is really important for the commission to read and be critical reader when you're reading it, because it is important.
And I have both Commissioner Intner and Commissioner Wilson.
Commissioner Intner, go ahead.
I agree. And I think that clarifying the issue that it's not 3 events, that it in fact is 3 types of events is really helpful, because even if that's the case, then the cost of transitioning that they've given us, if those are true costs, I think it becomes prohibitive. Because it isn't something you're going to plan on doing 3 times a year. It's something that could happen more than that. And that is if that's the true cost, and I, accept that they've looked into this and they've gotten quotes, it doesn't seem like a feasible plan to try to swap or transition back and forth between the 2 uses.
I agree. And based on what the assistant attorney is sharing, it isn't 3 events, 3 types of events, but it's not 3 events. It could be 53 events. It just depends on how many they have the desire to hold. And I would think, again, it's just encouraging a different title for a type of event if it pits the 2 clubs against each other. It does not seem like a reasonable solution. I know that kind of moving to another topic, we had a ad hoc not an ad hoc, actually more of a, I guess it was a commission-based committee where we were exploring working with the county and Sol Park. For those of you who aren't involved much with what's going on with county parks, they have a completely new leadership. We've had a lot of movement in that, and the park manager and the director of that department have, it's just a really refreshing to deal with them. They're very open-minded. They have hard numbers on the deficit that Sol Park is running. I've had many discussions with them casually over how that park is underutilized for a number of sports, not just pickleball or tennis, but softball, equestrian, barbecues. And I believe city staff has casually had some meetings as well. I just will put out there that I think that I know it's on the east side of town. It has ample parking. Sound is not an issue. I really think the commission's work should definitely involve having conversations about how the city could partner with the county. Based on the current administration, I do not think it's unreasonable, and I don't even think that it would be that time consuming. Based on the numbers, the Sol Park is not making any money for the county. They're losing money, and even if we came up with a fee waiver, so I know that was the biggest obstacle from the pickleball community was parking, and we can totally address that in an agreement with the county. And so I think that the commission should have those discussions about partnering with the county, and not just for pickleball, but maybe start with pickleball.
Now we have Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, go ahead.
with all due respect, I think some of the division that we've seen has arisen because particular solutions have been offered before a comprehensive review of possibilities has taken place. And I hear Soul Park is one of those that's been mentioned for a long time. Sarasota Park was mentioned way back in 2018. Lots of specific things have been offered, and but there's not been, at least in my review of all the minutes of the City Council and the Parks and Recreation Commission, there's not been a real comprehensive comparative disadvantages, advantages of the possibilities. And so I'm just a little, I'm concerned if I take it that Soul Park should definitely be investigated as part of a solution, but to promote any one solution right now, any one location right now, is also putting, I think, the cart before the horse before the work is really done. And, you know, so I guess I really would like to urge that we organize, I guess, an ad hoc committee, and I'm certainly very willing to be on that committee and share the work that I've already done in investigating and looking at other models, other places that have faced the same kind of decisions, and you know, get this underway, because it's going to take a little while to do it right and not get different groups of people up in arms about, well, you're going to move the pickleball, you're going to dislocate the tennis, you're going to, you know, the city's going to take over Soul Park, and then what's going to happen? I mean, these just all lend themselves to the rumor mill. And I'd really like to urge us to let's just commit to investigating what's possible and put together the best information we can, so that a good decision, a good recommendation can come from the commission, and the city council has the information it needs to make whatever decision it wants to.
Louise, can you repeat for the commissioners what the request from council was?
Yeah,
please?
absolutely.
Just for clarification for the
Yeah,
record.
absolutely. So it was to go ahead and provide a recommendation regarding the requests and concerns raised around the pickleball facility.
Specifically regarding noise or size, or was there any other, just in general?
Yeah, so
usage?
so the request that came in, if memory serves me right, is a request for additional court space, playtime, and then concerns were in regards to the noise.
I have the motion as recorded in the minutes from the city council, if you'd like for me to read it.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. Just for clarification, I just don't like the commission to get lost in the outside of the scope of what the council is asking for us to actually do. There's a lot of information and a lot of moving parts, and things that we maybe think are need to happen isn't necessarily what the council is asking us to do. So that'd be great, Commissioner Wilson, if you could read that.
It was moved by Council Member Wyrick and seconded by Council Member Francina to direct that the Parks and Recreation Commission work with staff on an accelerated basis to gather information and return it to council regarding costs, deed restrictions, and other factors regarding situation of pickleball courts within the city of Ojai or elsewhere in the Ojai Valley. And it was adopted unanimously. So that, it's not the most specific motion, but that was the motion.
Thank you.
It sounds like it's calling for a subcommittee.
Yes, it does,
Right.
doesn't it?
Work with staff.
Do we have, on an accelerated basis, do we have commissioners that are interested in working with staff to establish that? I assume we would need at least 2 commissioners to volunteer for that?
Correct, 2 commissioners.
And then keep in mind that that recommendation would then come back, the ad hoc would present to the rec commission,
That's
and then the full rec commission would make a recommendation to council.
That is correct.
Okay. Do we have anyone who would like to volunteer? Okay, Commissioner.
I
Wilson.
volunteer.
Okay, Commissioner Wilson. Is any, Commissioner Firestone? Okay.
Yeah, unless someone else really wants to. And in the way that.
I sat on the last commission, as well did Commissioner Entner, and I feel, based on what I've read from City Council and what I gained through that process, that I would be able to receive an ad hoc report and then be able to have conversations about what's gathered, and then come up with a joint recommendation to council. I'm comfortable with that. Okay.
I am as well. I think that's a good plan.
Okay, so I think maybe we'll make a motion. If anybody else, I can make it, or I can, that Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Firestone be appointed to the ad hoc committee to work with staff on an accelerated basis to address cost, deed restrictions, and usage of pickleball time and court play.
Do we have a
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, and can you call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Firestone?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ittner?
Yes.
And Chair Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Get back to our agenda here. Okay, information items. I know we've covered a lot tonight. Recreation report.
Yes, and here I'll go ahead and turn it over to Weston. Weston, if you would be so kind to share the recreation report, please.
Thank you, Luis. Hello, commissioners, and welcome, Commissioner Walker. My name is Weston Montgomery. I'm the Recreation Specialist 2 for the department. I have for you the Recreation Department update for this month. We continue to offer our COVID testing at Sarasota Park, and the new update is that it is now Monday through Friday with the same times of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Our recreational programming update has a lot of adult activities this time. Like we heard from one of our community members, our adult drop-in activities include basketball, soccer, and ultimate frisbee throughout the week. Anyone listening, our drop-in ultimate frisbee is looking for a new volunteer facilitator to oversee the activity and keep it going. Each drop-in activity is $3 per player and paid upon arrival. Adult softball will be back and will begin this month and play an 8-week season this spring. Returning groups and first-time players may team up and play an 8-week season. Games will be held on Tuesday and Friday nights. For questions about joining the league and forming a team, please inquire with us at the Recreation Department office. The adult and senior strength class just celebrated its 800th class in February with instructor Gary. There was even a couple of participants who have participated from the very beginning for all those 800. Gary in our weight room and gym upstairs in our gymnasium, he has the ability to tailor some personal training times to groups and teams who are interested in the program. Our program highlight this month is going to be all about Art with Robin. Robin Schwartzberg has acquired a big following at our rec center of youth and adult artists in our Wednesday night classes at the Boyd Center. Robin has many professional outlets in the area, but the opportunity to provide lessons at the community center with our department's scholarship opportunities brings her art lessons to us. The lessons include beginner to advanced principles of art, color theory, painting, drawing, and mixed media. She's a great instructor. For our future programming, our kids' movie nights have returned, and we are currently scheduled from March through August to have movie nights, and they will be on the last Friday of the month. Parents may drop children off ages 5 through 13 at the Boyd Community Center on the last Friday, and this is a great service for the kids and for the parents once a month. That's the end of my report on programming and the rec department, and thank you everyone for your service and commitment.
Weston, can you clarify for the public that's listening the age range for movie night?
Absolutely, Chair. 5 through 13, ages 5 through 13.
So I think Ryan, your children can go, right? It's really great. I have to say, out of all the events, my children really, really enjoy going to movie night. So if your kids haven't gone, something I really encourage. It's a fun drop-in event, and it's a good night to do a date night with your spouse.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll echo that.
Okay, thank you for that. And do we have a city council liaison report?
Not this evening.
Okay. Thank you. And any commission reports or comments that we haven't already discussed on the agenda?
I had a few. First off, I'm sorry for missing last month's meeting, and just one thing from watching the video, that on the complete streets, and there was a recommendation that, you know, when things are kind of near a park, that we be, if there's a street update going on, that we be involved in that. And I'd like to emphasize that we are the Parks and Recreation Commission, not just the Parks Commission. And so I think anytime a decision affects the ability for our citizens to recreate, we should be involved. And I think that pretty much means every time a street is being updated, regardless of where it is, because you know, access to safe bicycling and safe pedestrian passageways is recreation. So I'd like to encourage the city to have our commission involved anytime there's an update, not just if it's close to a park. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that I have been working with Luis on looking at the shading for the skate park. So I don't have an update for tonight, but I am working on that. I did use some online resources to kind of look at solar sun positioning patterns throughout the day and the course of the year. And based on that, using Google Maps, I put together some mapping of where the proposed shade structure would provide shade throughout the course of the day for months throughout the year. And Luis and I looked at that and went over to the skate park, and it seemed like having all of the points of the triangle, if you remember what the shade looked like at the same elevation at 12 feet, kind of moves the shade quite a bit throughout the year and the time of day, such that at parts of the summertime, kind of like in the afternoon and later in the afternoon, the shade is pretty far from that area where the actual triangle is, which is kind of where we want the shade. So we thought about maybe lowering two of the points of the triangle down to 10 feet. We thought that lower than 10 feet would be maybe kind of too much of an invitation for people to mess with the shade. So now I'm looking at revising kind of that mapping to see how that would look, if that kind of helps the placement of the shade to kind of lower down two of the points. And I will have an update for our next meeting if we want to put it on the agenda to discuss that. That should be plenty of time. And then the third thing is I wanted to recognize Weston. I think he's doing a great job with his updates to us. Those are really great. I've also in the past week had a couple of non-commission items that I've interacted with him on, and I really appreciate his customer service. So thanks, Weston.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Ryan. I agree. Okay. Any other commissioner updates? And Commissioner Firestone, I apologize. We did have the shade park, the skate park shade structure update originally on the agenda, but because we knew we were going to have a lot of public comments, in the interest of everyone's time, we moved it to next month. So thanks for the update on that, and know that we'll dedicate time for that next meeting, and then look for that. Thank you for taking the time to map that out. That was really I think it's going to turn out nice. So I look forward to discussing that next month. We also
Great, thanks.
We also have program enrollment data update on the agenda that we moved from tonight's meeting to next month. So any other commissioner reports or comments that they want to share?
Is there any information about the joint meeting that we want to announce tonight or talk about, give an update on?
Luis was working on a final draft of the presentation. Well, for everyone who's listening, when is the joint meeting?
So it's scheduled for Tuesday, March 15th. And that would be at 6 o'clock, if memory serves me right.
And did we determine if it's going to be in person or in Zoom? What is the plan as of right now?
It would be via Zoom. If anything changes, I'm happy to go ahead and notify the commission.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll be the entire Parks and Rec Commission and the entire City Council all in one Zoom? I see. Okay. I think I'll come in person. This is really nice. And what is the city's position if commissioners or council members wish to come in person? Are they allowed to, or is that prohibited?
From my understanding, all meetings are to be held virtually up until the 18th, and then after the 18th, they would be in person.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, till the 18th of March.
Yeah. Now, if the commission wishes, we could go ahead and see if we could go ahead and postpone the meeting.
No, I'm just asking. I try in the interest of getting back to normal. It's just nice to be here, and I think the in-person meetings are more effective personally, but.
That's also a lot of people.
It's really hard, the challenging, and I know that it works, and I'm sure we'll continue to have Zoom call-ins after because people are out of town and it's convenient, but I just like seeing everybody, and I think a lot of the things that you take out of their comments aren't just spoken, but being able to see someone's body language and facial expressions are important also. Okay. All right, well, we have our listed future agenda items. I'm sure we're going to need to add an ad hoc update, especially since that's on an accelerated schedule. I'll look to Luis to get with
I'll reach out
Commissioner
to
Firestone and Wilson to schedule some dates. Okay, and place that on the agenda for discussion for next meeting. And any other future agenda items that the commissioners would like to place on agenda? Youth Commissioner Ruff, how are we doing with our community outreach? Do you think that having that on agenda for an update next month would be something you could talk about?
Yeah, sure.
The youth is how they're interpreting the programs that are being offered, and maybe give us an update on your perspective of the youth and how we're rating with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll put that as a youth committee update.
Yeah, let's do that. Youth committee update as a specific. That way we can talk in more detail about it if it's agendized. Okay, great. All right, anything else before I adjourn? Okay, I think we're right at exactly 2 hours. It's one of our longer meetings. Well, I'll officially adjourn the Parks and Rec Commission at 8:01.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for attending.
Nelson, welcome.